And so the story goes, Moses is walking along and something catches his eye. He didn't have to go over and look. It catches his eye and he thinks, what the hell's that? And then he goes over and he starts to pay attention. And the more he pays attention, the more the voice of God manifests itself to him. That's what that story means. Is, so something catches your interest and glimmers, then that's the gold beckoning in the distance. It captures your interest. And then if you pursue that, like it leads you into the depths.
I don't know if we've talked about this before, but what do you think about those scholars in Israel that believe that the burning bush was some sort of a psychedelic experience?
Oh, well, I think we have no idea how psychedelic experience shaped religious presumption.
Have you read Brian Murarescu's
Yeah, absolutely.
work? Yeah.
I interviewed him. Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, look, we know that the shamanic tradition, which is God only knows how many tens of thousands of years old. It might be, is it millions of years old? Maybe. Human beings have been using fire for 2 million years. It could be really, really old. And the shamanic tradition is definitely a psychedelic tradition. And one of the things Murarescu did was show quite clearly that all of Greek culture was embedded in what looks like a collective psychedelic experience. And so, yeah, I think the evidence, like Mircea Eliade, a great religious scholar, studied shamanism, and he thought that the use of psychedelics was a degeneration of the original tradition, but I don't think that's true at all. I think that the psychedelic tradition is part and parcel of the universal religious heritage of mankind, and I don't know what that means. I've talked to people like Robin Carhart Harris, who studies the neurology of psychedelic experience, and he said that what it does is produce something akin to a hyper stress experience. So imagine you're extremely stressed, like your life's in danger. And so you have to open yourself up to the possibility of radically new ideas. Well, a psychedelic substance puts you in that state of mind. And so that can be hellish because you can collapse into like a catastrophic fight or flight defensive response and magnified by the hallucinogen, then you're just in hell. But that isn't the only necessary outcome. And so the psychedelic experience definitely mimics something like radical learning. And it also seems to reduce the effect of memory on perception. Because most of what you see in the world is memory. It's just that's why, when you look at a printed word, you read the word. You can't not read the word. That's because you see in the memory. You're not seeing, like when I look at the sign behind you, I'm not lost in the yellow in the details. I see the Joe Rogan experience, right? Part and parcel of the perception. It's all memory. What a psychedelic does in part is remove the inhibition of memory from perception. And that re-immerses you in the complex world and shows you how remarkable and beyond comprehension everything really is. That's real. But the question is what to do with that. Timothy Leary, his doctrine was turn on, tune in, drop out. And that devastated the whole culture, that idea. It's like, well, if we just shed our presuppositions and the whole industrial nightmare, we'd all be freedom-loving hippies wandering around in Eden. It's like, no. I wanted to do a line of psychedelic products. Turn on, tune in, grow up. Right. I think that's much funnier, much better.
Yeah, and that's also possible. That's a possible path through this sort of quest for spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah.
And the Timothy Leary thing was, it was dismissed by a lot of other psychedelic pioneers of the time. They saw the flaws.
Oh, yeah,
in that
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, definitely. The people who were already experimenting with ideas of proper set,
And also
they knew that back in the early 60s.
Yes. And also the people that had no desire to run a group of like-minded people, which Leary did.
Yeah.
He wanted to.
He fell into that hippie culture, that hippie
Yes.
counterculture.
Also, I think he fell into the cult of personality.
Yeah.
Fell into this thing that happens when too many people are paying attention to you.
Yeah.
You think you have all the answers.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
Yeah, especially if you combine that with psychedelic
Yes,
experience.
yes.
That turns out to be a problem.
Right, and the intoxicating grip of that, the power that you have over these people, which is it's unavoidable. And if you are a guru, air quotes, and you're the person doing that, like how many of them just start cults? And how many of them, it winds up being sexual
Well,
winds
Jung
up-
was asked once to comment on psychedelic experience. I think he was asked about what Huxley was doing, and Jung's answer was, beware of unearned wisdom. Right. Very
Yeah,
smart.
Very
They're
smart.
very, very smart.
Yeah, unearned.
Unearned
because,
wisdom. Yeah.
almost all wisdom comes at a price and a
Yeah.
long road to get to that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a quick fix. There's
No.
no quick fixes. This idea that you're just going to trip balls and figure it all out.
Yeah, and then
Cool.
you've got it. No,
Yeah.
that's no.
No, and everyone that I know that thinks
Yeah.
they've figured it out are the most lost.
Yeah.
They're, especially the ones
Yeah,
that
if
are
you're lucky,
espousing
you
it
can
to
come
other
out of an
people.
experience like that knowing that, like Socrates, and Socrates may have learned this from psychedelic experience. Seems quite probable because he participated in the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yes.
He said, I know that I don't know. He was radically open to the revelation of his own ignorance, and certainly psychedelics can provide that. It's like, oh, I see. I don't have a clue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first step.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
first lesson you learn is you don't know shit.
Yeah.
And also the overwhelming understanding that this is available, that this
Mhm.
experience is available, and it's so alien to modern experience, and it just an average everyday experience. That this thing is,
Behind the veil, man.
yeah, and it's right there.
Mhm.
And it's so scary for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, maybe this time, there are wise people working on that front, like Roland Griffiths, who unfortunately is very sick at the moment. And, he's approached this with a lot more reverence and respect than more casual experimenters like Leary. And maybe this time, God willing, we'll get it right and introduce these strange ancient chemicals back into our culture without blowing the lid right off it.
Right, and I think one of the best gateways to that is dealing with people who have trauma.
Mhm.
Soldiers with
Yeah.
PTSD, where they're doing MDMA
Yeah.
therapy, and also other people that have had violent experiences in their life with MDMA.
Yeah.
It's helped
well,
them to
and
overcome that.
Griffiths has helped people deal with, paralyzing death anxiety consequential to cancer diagnosis. And,
Yes.
and those studies, they're very dry. We gave psilocybin to a group of people who were suffering from cancer, and their relationship with death radically transformed. The implication is somehow that's a chemical transformation. And of course, to some degree it is because it was induced by a chemical, but there's a mystery there. It's like, well, what happened to those people in that
Right.
6 hours that transformed their vision of death? Right?
Yeah. And what happens
There's a bit of a mystery there.
during the most profound psychedelic experiences? Are you actually in the presence of God? I mean, are there moments during those things where you kind of see it?